Ups and downs of being a digital nomad. This is part of the downs, apparently. I'm having trouble doing the things. So I'll just hang out and give folks a second to get here. In the meantime, hi, if you don't know me, my name is Wanda to the Duncan. I am a digital nomad. I've been traveling full time for 6 years now and working online. It's been dope. I've been able to do a few things that I really, really enjoy doing and see some amazing places in the process as well. Let me check in with the girls. Teresa, hi, I'm here. Teresa, I'm so sorry. Again. Again, it's happening. I don't know what's happening with my camera and my laptop. And I tried to get in here early. Girl, the ups and downs. That's what we're talking about. So, all right. So I'm just going to give folks a second to get up in here and I'm going to stop playing with y'all time. Stop playing with my own time because this is not fun for me either. I just have in my mind, I have this quality of stuff that I like to do, and this is not it. So I need to figure out how to up my quality game. Thank you. Oh, you see this movement I got? Thank you, girl. I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here too. Ups and downs, ups and downs. Part of the downs. Definitively. You know, if you believe in the binary of ups and downs, I think that life is just a bunch of information, really. And you decide what's what about that information. You decide if you like it or you don't like it. So in this particular situation, there's some stuff that I do not like that I don't want to repeat, and I keep repeating it. But and I think that's what the whole digital nomad thing is about. Travel and online business, you are constantly coming up with things you don't like and some things you do like. And hopefully you get to this place where you are cultivating, curating, and putting your energy into the stuff that you do like and creating more of that. And that is part of the process too, because sometimes you only know what you don't like. You're like, I don't like that. I don't like that. But you're not really sure what it is that you want or like. So I'm going to get started here. And feel free to ask any questions. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to separate the ups and downs of digital nomad into travel and the business part, the entrepreneurship part. So with travel, you have traveling as a Black woman, as a Black person. So there's that layer. And then you have the woman layer. And that is what it is. I think that a lot of times we are online in these groups asking the question, is it safe for me to be there? And that's not an easy question to answer because we don't know if it's safe for you to be there, honestly. There's a different reaction to different people. So while one person had a lovely experience in their body type, with their skin tone, with their hair, with their height, with their ancestors, that may not translate to you. And the things that they enjoyed, you might not enjoy either. So traveling and trying to get recommendations for where to go and having safety in mind can and can't work because you're not really going to know until you touch ground, until you get there and see what's what. So if you were going to say the ups and downs, like It's both and neither, right? Because it's very, what do you call it? It's very subjective, whether or not something is enjoyable to you if you're experiencing ups and downs in a place. So those are the ups and downs for traveling as a Black person and as a Black woman. Location. So something came to mind, as a digital nomad, there's a different slant on the travel because often, and there's no right way to travel when it comes to being a nomad, right? Sometimes what it is there's this mindset of I'm just going to go live in a place for a specific amount of time to just try it out. But I know this is not my forever home. And usually the way that people are able to do that is by packing light. So you're not hauling a bunch of stuff around, which makes it more difficult for you to move. Because you never really know like what a place is like. Again, going back to that, you don't know what it's like to live there in your skin, so forth and so on. So that is the frame of mind, I think, that a lot of nomads travel with. And then if you find a place where you want to stay, well, that's a different matter. Or if you've been traveling and there's somewhere you want to go back to, that's a different matter. But a lot of times that's what it is. People are traveling with the frame of mind to experience a place for an amount of time. Some travel fast and some travel slow. So that's up to you, how you want to do that. And there can be ups and downs with that. So if you are if you are going somewhere for the first time, never been there, and you're like, oh, I want to try this place out, there can be a lot of surprises, even if you've done your research. Also, like if you're traveling with an expectation, like that can create a lot more downs, I think, versus having an open mind about like what this place is like. So, yeah, there can be some downs, I think, traveling that way as well, because I don't know, you just made all the effort to get there and you get there and maybe you don't like it. But I think it has a lot to do with your frame of mind as well, because you know that you're not going somewhere with the intention of making it your forever home. Maybe you give it a lot more grace and you're just like, oh, well, this is what it's like here. And oh, well, that's different from everywhere I've been. Or once you get there, you get to understand if it is someplace. Maybe you got shocked in the beginning, but like it's not so bad, or you come to fall in love with it, right? Maybe it wasn't love at first flight, but you got to get somewhere and understand the things that are charming about it, or the people that make it a really dope place to be. People can often slant your vision of a place. Like maybe the place isn't all that, everywhere, maybe they got some mountains, maybe they got a beach, maybe they got some tourist sites or the heritage sites and stuff like that. Whatever the landscape or the draw is for that particular country, but it's the people. So maybe you find some people, or maybe you don't like the people there. So the place may be beautiful, but you just don't like the people. So it can be, there are ups and downs when it comes to that. The ups are always just being able to see somewhere for yourself. I think that's always an up, even if it's not somewhere you want to stay long term. You got to experience it firsthand. You got to eat the food. You got to see what was to be seen. You got to have the conversations if you were able to have conversations. And I mean, it's just information, just a place on the globe that you got to experience while you were alive. And maybe it showed you something about yourself too. Because we travel based off of the interest. We just have a notion about a place like, oh, that sounds cool, I want to go there, even though like you don't know. Like we never know, we never know what it's really going to be like. Hey, Angela. Hey, girl. Thanks for coming up in here, girl. Culture. So we were talking about people. We're talking about how people make the place. Culture is huge. It's huge. And it's one of those things that you might not be able to easily have conversations with the locals about, because it's like the fish in the water, right? Like if you're at home in your home environment and somebody comes and asks you, why do Black people always say hi to each other? And it may not even be something you ever thought about. Or why there's this thing that Black people do. If you are not ready to put the fork in the sink to be washed, you put it next to the sink so that, it's not just laying around on the table or something, but like it's not dirty enough to be washed yet. Like you're going to use that again. It's just like small, silly little things like that that exist in every culture. And everybody's not always aware or inquisitive enough to examine their own waters. And then there's just like patriarchy, there's fat phobia, transphobia, homophobia, there's religious superiority, there's how they educate their citizens, there's how they treat children, how they treat elders, what the job market is like everything plays into the culture, what happened in their histories, their ancestors, if they were colonizers or not. So there's a lot that goes into it, and some of it may not be in your lane. How are women perceived in the culture, and how do women express themselves? Is there safety when it comes to, that's usually a question that we have as women. Is it safe for me to be there, right? So there are definitely ups and downs when it comes to that. And again, some of these things are just pervasive. Like it's hard to pinpoint it really. So it's just a feeling you get when you're there. So I think that's the difference too between people who are slow traveling. You're there for maybe more, I'll say like more than a month, maybe more than 3 weeks, I think is considered slow traveling, versus a vacation. Because when you vacation, you don't care about that stuff. You only got 5 days, 3 days, like whatever. So you're just in and out. You're not really thinking that deeply about everything that's going on. You're just trying to get around, eat a couple things, get some good rest before you got to go back to where you live. So it is, I think, it can be like a deeper. Sometimes people move to these places and they just kind of live on the surface. That's honestly what I'm doing right now. That's what I feel like. Because I'm here and the numbers for COVID are climbing and I'm not vaccinated. And these people do not care. They have not cared. They just be all up in each other's faces, sneezing and not really, but basically. So like I'm not out there in the streets like that. But that's a choice that I'm making because I don't want to die or I don't want to be sick in another country alone. I don't want to be sick in my own country alone. Okay. Hey, Krishan. Hey, girl. Thanks for coming through. Hey, Supreme Sovereign. Hey, girl. Thanks for coming through. All right. So the next thing is I had mentioned like slow travel versus vacationing, which is super fast. As you pace, like some people think, oh, I could just hop around. I just have this one piece of luggage or a couple pieces of luggage. Like it's going to be easy. Like I'm trying to see the world. Like, so you are burning it and you will burn yourself from my experience, if you travel a bit too fast, you don't have time to catch your breath. You get decision fatigue. You know what it is to try and find a place to live online and book the tickets. And now there are the extra precautions and requirements because of COVID. So there's also just like you being able to have time to settle, really, to unpack your bags and mentally unpack your bags, right? So if you're moving from place to place to place as a nomad, I think that's definitely a down in my book, to be bouncing around from location to location, even within the same country. It's quite a bit. It's different if you take a trip every 3 weeks or so or something like that. It depends on like how inquisitive and curious you are about a place, because even every country really, it's going to be a different culture depending on where you go. In America, it's like that. Every single state In north and south and east and west of the state, you're going to find different stuff, right? And it's the same with these different countries. So you go to one city, like you're only getting a small, it's like a little sample, a little sample taste of that area. So it is entirely possible to explore more, but I would just caution around moving too much because you will get burnt out, I believe. Also, visas. A lot of people have questions about visas. And basically, as a digital nomad, if you choose a country that has a digital nomad visa specifically, it's just a clear cut conversation between yourself and the country, the government of the country that says, I'm here, I work online, you know that, we ain't got no problems, bing, bang, boom. And everything is set up from there. There's a bit of infrastructure. Are some countries in the last couple of years or year that started to create remote worker. So that means it's the same. They know that when you land in the country, you have work that you're doing. This does not give you permission to work in the country. And that is a lot more difficult to do because every single country prioritizes hiring their own citizens before they hire anybody else. So if they hire a foreigner legally, then the company has to pay a whole lot of money to get a work visa for that foreigner. And usually it has to be under a specific requirement that the country has, that their people are not educated enough in order to do that kind of thing. So it's like a specialty type thing. But usually if a company is hiring, and that is the direction you want to go as a nomad, to not be an entrepreneur, to be an employee, then there's all the infrastructure in the world. They'll take care of the visa. A lot of times they give you direction or provide housing for you, so forth and so on, if that's how you wanted to do it. I don't know that you're necessarily a digital nomad at that point. Like you're just pretty much a foreign worker. But that's the difference in the visas. As a nomad, you're responsible for knowing how long you get to stay in a country and keeping count of that. If you are going to a country that does not have a specific digital nomad visa, then it's just whatever. I personally don't recommend saying when you get to immigration, oh yeah, I'm a nomad, I'm making money online, this and that, because a lot of people don't even understand that concept. In fact, in some countries, it may even be illegal. Even some of the things that we do, if you have a blog and you want to stay at a hotel and you do like a coverage for the hotel in exchange for the stay, like in some places, that's actually illegal. So there's some information that's out there in terms of like what work is and isn't permitted. So if you were worried about it, you can do your research. For the most part, most countries are just fine with you coming in on the tourist visa. And as long as you are not earning local money, then usually it is not a thing. To cover your bases, I would just do your research for the country. And you basically just look up, are you able to essentially like be on vacation and like work in a country, something like that. But you just like use your Googles or use your other resources and see like what other folks are saying. In terms of ramifications, like I haven't heard any stories about anyone being a nomad, working in a country and something happening to them because the government found out that they were working online. Because I don't even know that any government anywhere has any way to track that. There was an incident, but this has its own special circumstances. So what had happened was there was a couple in Bali, and they were doing what everybody does in Bali, talking about how dope the lifestyle was, how compared to the income they were making, it was inexpensive. I'm really careful about that language because people are like, it's so cheap. It's so cheap for who? For whomst? Because it's not cheap for everybody. You don't live there. You're coming, and a lot of times you're earning in a currency that is more valuable than the local currency. And so you're able to afford a lifestyle that's different than what the locals are able to afford. That's not cheap, maybe to you. So anyway, this couple was there. They were doing what everybody does. They created like an ebook about living in Bali and how dope it was in Bali and how they would encourage anybody to come here to get themselves straight, so forth and so on, working online. There's even a lot of countries with co-working spaces. I'm sure you've heard of that. And co-working spaces are for people who work online to come and have like an office type environment to work in. So like governments are clearly, particularly in Bali, they are aware that people are coming there to do that. They know. If they don't know, they have their head stuck somewhere, right? I have to believe that they know because these businesses cater specifically to people who work online. And if you just walk in and you can see that it's not local people that are using those types of services. So the couple gets deported. The added layer is that they were LGBTQ. It was two ladies, American ladies, and they went on Twitter and they were talking about the ebook. Indonesians got a hold of the Twitter thread and blew it all the way up. And they started making claims. And you know how it is, it's an echo chamber. Nobody's looking at the actual facts. They were claiming that the ladies weren't paying taxes. They were claiming that, what else was it? That the taxes came up heavy. Oh, that they had overstayed their visa and some other things like that, things that weren't true. And like, it was just a mess. It was a mess. And because it went viral, that's why the government got a hold of them. Now, there again, they anybody that creates content, which oftentimes that's digital nomads, that's travelers in general, anybody who's staying anywhere for an extended period of time, usually they are talking about it. So these ladies didn't do anything different from anybody else. They believe that it's the LGBTQ. You know, Indonesia is a majority Muslim, but also like specifically in Bali, like, you know, they have their own ancestral practices or what have you. So nobody is like out in LGBTQ. And I believe they're actively persecuted as well, even though, of course, those populations exist. But we know how that goes, right? So yeah, there was never a statement that they were deported specifically because they didn't pay their taxes, nor was it about their visa. It seemed like all their paperwork was in order. And you know how America is with taxes, and taxes are due like once a year. Like every country is going to have their own tax system, so forth and so on. So there was, the media never said, the government never said anything to support that. That's why they were being deported. And the ladies just said it was the LGBTQ plus issue. So that's an example of it going sideways. And I believe also why a lot of Black women don't want to step up and show their faces sometimes is because of, sometimes there can be persecution because we are hyper visible online. Hyper visible meaning like they love to throw Black women under the bus on the internet in some spaces, in some, like sometimes. I spend, you know, we all spend a little bit of time on the internet. Like you don't see scandals like this very often, honestly. So, but I think that there's just this fear that it could happen. And I think that in this case, like it did happen and they had to go back to the US, but I believe they're like traveling again. And even if they can't go to that country, there's a bunch of other countries, maybe not with COVID, but there's a bunch of other countries you can go to. So it's just like, if you think about the worst case scenario when it comes to this stuff, you have to think it all the way through and not just let the fear stop you from showing up, because you have to show up. And also like do a bit of your research. I think what happened too with that, with the thread, is that they got overwhelmed because each of them has their own account or whatever, of course, but they didn't make a statement and refute. They had lawyered up at some point as well, so maybe they were encouraged not to. So yeah, those are just a few things to think about. Just be aware of the rules and travel with caution and have cautious conversations with people. Not too cautious, because I'm tired of all of that. You know what I mean? Like, I am choosing this lifestyle to live free and not to be afraid of this or that. Just again, being aware of the rules and not saying more than what you got to say, right? People start you get nervous, you start you start saying all types of stuff. So that's just something to think about. Stay on top of the rules for the countries, because you are a visitor. You are under the grace of that country's laws. That comes with a lot of stuff too. Like, you hear about people getting locked up for having drugs and other stuff that aren't allowed, or for being LGBTQ, just for identifying as such, being locked up. So those things do happen. So there is some caution that needs to be taken. Loneliness. Let's talk about loneliness. Do you know her? Does she know you? Some people like people and want to be around people. When you choose this lifestyle, the people that you knew in your former life, it may surprise you how they react once you've gone. It may not surprise you. Either way, you need to pad yourself with a whole bunch of love and be prepared for those relationships to change. Because I think they will change. You are no longer able to create memories. You are no longer able to interact personally with these people. I don't know how the last year was for y'all and if you was out there in them streets or not, but some people don't do well with someone reaching for their dreams. Some people don't do well with communicating online only. Like, it's fine if I text you in between the times that we see each other, but if texting you is the only thing I ever have, or video call is the only thing I ever have, and I see all these pictures of you out there in the streets, being happy, glowing, I might withdraw. So if you want to keep people in your life in some capacity, it's important for you to be aware of that before you go, and try to have these kinds of conversations with them to say, I'm going. How do you like to stay in touch? Is it Instagram DMs? Is it Facebook Messenger? Do you want to have a call on the calendar every month? And let's just keep that appointment, because I want you to know that you're important to me, and I want us to keep this relationship alive. And this is what we're going to have. Now, if you got dope friends, they're actually going to visit you where you are. Maybe friends, family, chosen family, however it goes. So, but trying to be aware and cognizant and have that conversation. And if they're getting a little prickly around you deciding to step into your dream, that is something that you should deal with as well. You shouldn't let that just simmer in the back of your mind. You're like, oh, you feel a type of way, right? You have feelings about this. So let's talk about your feelings about this. The words that you're using, the energy behind the words that you're using, this is how they're hitting me. I don't know if that's the way you intended it, but it's coming across a little spicy, right? A little prickly. So what's really good, how you really feel about it. Now, somebody can tell you something they don't know themselves. If they haven't faced themselves, then they're not going to be able to be like, yeah, girl, I'm jealous. Like, who comes out and says that, right? She might, he might, but they may not. So just being flexible with that. So you have your relationships with your people back home, and then it's like the people wherever you end up. So again, depending on that culture piece, or if you were doing your research and you specifically went to a place because you heard about a community there, what is that really like? Are you able to actually make connections? And it may take a little bit more effort. Like everybody says, as an adult, it's harder to make friends, and you're not going to have a job. You have your work wife, your work husband, whatever it is, your little work friends or whatever, that you hang out with from time to time. And usually that's trauma bonding. because these jobs are awful, right? So like y'all hang out and y'all talk about how horrible the job is. You're not going to have a workplace where there are people who are in a similar something that draws you together with them. You won't have a sports team or, you know, your girls' night out crew, or like however it was that you were connecting with people in the real world. You may not have that here. What you will have are maybe like meetups, virtual meetups. You'll have maybe walking tours. Somebody's doing that, or people who are meeting to go explore something. Co-working spaces. You may have stuff like that. But a lot of it is you have to, and just like being out in the streets and not being scared to like walk up to somebody and be like, hi, you're black, I'm black, let's be friends. And you kind of get the feel. So this is something that I've noticed is like being black out in the world. All black people we have a lot in common, but there are some things that we don't. Sometimes you see black people and they don't care that you're black. It's like we're traveling. If I wanted to see black people, I would just see them back home. Like, I'm not going to acknowledge that you exist, that I see you over there type of thing. So that happens. But like, I've also had people approach me because I'm black, right? Other black people. So you know, just don't be surprised. Don't be surprised by how it goes. Go with the open-mindedness. And like, some people don't always want to be around black people. That happens too, I guess, somewhere for some people. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But it does take effort. It takes a different kind of effort to locally connect with people who are on your same vibe. I got here in Albania and I was meeting some black people. So I started a Black in Albania group because there wasn't one. Now we are kind of all over the country, but I'm going to have a virtual meetup tomorrow because, you know, I just can't sit down and be still for some reason. So, but that if you see that there's not something, you can start something. And it often doesn't have to take a whole lot of effort. It's just about connection, right? And let it be what it's going to be from there. So I also want to encourage you. Sometimes when you leave for the first time, it is the first time that you've ever had any amount of time to be by yourself. So what may feel like loneliness can just be you having more space around you than what you're used to, if that makes sense. Having more space around you than what you're used to, because you are used to your life being driven and dictated by needing to make money, needing to pay the rent, needing to pay the bills, having a built-in group of people around you and social obligations with those people based off of your relationship with them, birthdays or weekends or like whatever it is. So now you're in a place and it's quiet, but quiet isn't always lonely. And it might be nice for you to take up that space fully and to invite whatever that involves there. So that could be the ups and downs of you being able to sit with stuff. Stuff gets real loud real quick. Right? It's like a waterfall almost. It can be. And this, like, what did I just do? What am I doing? Like, I'm doing something totally different and this is weird. So there could be a lot of feelings that happen there. So that can be up and downy, right? From moment to moment. I just encourage you again to acknowledge what's happening and invite you to maybe see it a different way, whatever it is. You're making these decisions to live a different lifestyle because there's something in you that drew you to dream about it, to plan for it, to put action to it, to actually buy the ticket and pack your stuff and make it a reality. And I do not believe, like, how do you accidentally wind up there? I think it's very tough to accidentally do that. That was with a lot of intention. So when you actually get there, there could be some mourning that happens from your old life, but there's also more dreaming to do. You know what it is when you reach a goal, and then there's this space of, oh, I achieved it, like I did it, and this what's next. But you can already have in mind what's next, not in a push productivity type of way. You know, I never encourage that, but more in a, wow, I did it. Like, let me celebrate that I did this. And like, if I could do this, like, what else can I do? Like, now I have the time and the space and hopefully the resources to be able to pursue more of what I want to pursue and not what I feel like I have to pursue. I'm going to go take a nap. You know, I'm going to surround myself with the things that I love and enjoy. If you move to a beach town, you know, taking time to take walks on the beach. If you have books that you've been meaning to read. If you have teas that you want to drink and wine, or like, you know, whatever that looks like, filling the space with more of you and how you want to be. And, you know, taking time to meditate, taking time to move your body. If you have been challenged with getting into the routine that you feel like you need to, examining why and putting some intention behind the how you fill your time, how you fill your time on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm going to make a decision to exercise is the hardest thing. I'm going to wake up and it's going to be the first thing I do. So I get the hardest thing into my routine, like creating your new routine. So there's lots of possibilities there to where it doesn't have to be so lonely because you are so filled up with yourself. And I think that that's a relatively new concept, right? For a lot of us to be filled up with ourselves, to be in this place where you are happily taking up space, happily expressing yourself, happily letting whoever it is you really want to be and really are blossom and grow and feed that person. So ups and downs, it can certainly feel like when you are alone, but perhaps maybe not lonely. And so you're gonna meet a bunch of travelers, right? And it's gonna be a mixed bag. Come on. If you're back home, like, you kind of know it takes some moving around in order to meet up with people who are on the same vibe as you, right? That takes time, and that takes putting yourself out there. It's very possible. So it's just a matter of time sometimes. And like, maybe it's not even all that necessary. I don't know who you got in your life, but I don't know. There's also this thing with nomads, and it's definitely a down. It's an up, but it's also a down. But where you meet nomads and maybe they're really dope and they're super cool, and it's like, wow, so cool. And you get to hang out and maybe go out to eat and like every now and then, you know, get some work done or like whatever it is. And then because you're nomads, like, somebody leaves, or maybe both of you leave, but you're not leaving to the same place. So it's like nomad heartbreak, and that is absolutely a thing. It depends on the community where you are. Some people like are based there, so you know, maybe they live there, but some people are just there for a good time, not a long time, and so you just have to have that good time and move on. All right, I think you'll be interested in this. Let's talk about heated fellowship. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say the S word ending with the X. But let's talk about the S word ending with the X. I don't know who you like to do that with. I can only speak about eggplant up in these streets. As women, as humans, it is a human need. I don't know how hot you are right now in your life, or if this is even a blip on your radar. It might not be. If not, just skip this part. But just check your phone real quick. It's tricky. It's tricky. It's tricky. All I can say is just protect yourself. Don't rely on protection from the male side. Things happen with male protection. So protect yourself, however that looks like. If you need to be on the pill or what's it called? The thing they insert. I forget what it's called. Or the shot, like whatever that looks like, protect yourself if you are in childbearing years. When it comes to that, and STDs and stuff like that, because you just met them, so you don't know if they clean or not. So just protect yourself in that regard from a health standpoint. You also need to be very aware emotionally. If you are there for a good time and not a long time, in terms of heated fellowship, then make sure you are very clear with yourself about that. You know how, chemically speaking, whenever that particular act happens, there can be some attachment that happens, but it's not just yourself that you have to think about, it's the other person as well. It also depends on where you're traveling, because maybe they're a local. I think it's maybe a bit more difficult if they are local, because there can be an expectation like, oh, we go together, and it's just like, no, we don't. Cultures, right? So that can be something to navigate and to be careful about, because if they get clingy, do they know where you live? Are they about to be popping up? Are you going to see them in town? Are they going to feel entitled to your space and your time, and like feel comfortable walking to you up in the streets and stuff? Like, what's good? I thought we was, no, we're not. And there can be some comfort to be had there. So again, being clear with yourself emotionally about, I just had an itch that I needed scratched. And it's good to think about these things when you are clear-headed, because if you've had a couple drinks, things could get fuzzy real quick and you could just be living in the moment. So the more clarity you have in your spirit and being honest with yourself, the less tricky things will get. So, heated fellowship. I think with the nomads, it's a little bit easier because, like, you traveling, I'm traveling. We don't know if we traveling in the same direction, and maybe that person has a better concept of like dating, and if sex, I just said it, if that's involved with the dating process, then maybe it's not so much of a thing. But having those conversations up front help. Like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. I don't know if you're about that as well, but blah, blah, blah. Granted, having those conversations up front, that doesn't always mean that the person is clear with themselves, right? So even though they hear the words coming out of your face, like, again, if the act takes place and you continue to see them, like, things develop. So they may not agree with, even though you told them and your feelings haven't changed, their feelings might. Or maybe they was already in love when they found you. So yeah. And then there's also this thing of like, everybody don't always know how to do it. So sometimes that's even more frustrating. It's just like, I went through the trouble of, popping it. I went through the trouble, but like, I don't even like, how long am I staying here? Do I have time to train this person on how to do it correctly for me? So, because they really, I will give Black men this. I've said this before in the Black Women Digital Nomad Entrepreneur Group on Facebook. Black American men may collectively not have they stuff together, not be emotionally intelligent, not be straightforward, not be responsible in general, if I can say that. But they usually know how to wash the dishes real good. Like I mean, Black American culture made headboard music, for Pete's sake. Like, come on. Headboard music, like, I don't know that any other culture has music that you're supposed to have in the background while you're having heated fellowship. Like, come on. So, from my experience anyway, they may not be about nothing. It's not something you could build your future with, but you could get that itch scratched real good one time, two times. Other cultures don't really have that. So, yeah, sometimes it's just like, ugh, ugh. What you about to do? Because I'm, I got to work in the morning or like whatever it is, but you got to go and please never come back because that was horrible. So yeah, just, temper ups and downs, temper your expectations. Don't even expect other Black men because, again, Black American is a whole other culture. So you may think it's, oh, we Black. No, 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 no. Also, to get very serious momentarily, patriarchy is a thing. There are some men who have been empowered their entire lives just by virtue of men have been propped up just because they've been coded male. So them hearing no, you may be the first person ever in the entirety of history to say it and actually mean it and be able to enforce it. So that could go left. That could go real left if you tell someone no and they're not used to hearing that. So, beloved, just take care of yourself. Don't assume that everything is cool and people are on the same wavelength with you. IUD, yeah, y'all got me. um, and make sure that you are got an escape plan, you got some coverage, people know where you at, all that type of good stuff, so that don't nothing go all the way left, right? Also, if something does happen and there's a visitor in your body, every country does not legally allow you to reverse that situation. If you do have a visitor in your body that would like to stay and grow and come out at a later date. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say here, so I'm being very vague, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But there are ways to take care of that as well. And I can point you to some resources for that if you are in a country where it is not legal to have that procedure done and you find yourself in that situation, because that is something that could happen. And there's hope. There are services. So if, I don't tell nobody's business. I don't know if you know that, but I don't. So you can just reach out to me if you want that information and I'll happily share what I know. What y'all talking about? Being a solo traveler and open to making new friends abroad. How do you do that without potentially making yourself a target, letting folks know you're there alone potential? Black people I'm sorry, I missed that from a while ago. Black people tend to be super private, and I kind of get why, because I guess I'm private to a point as well. Um, and this was part of what I was going to talk about too. There's a fear around having your business out in the streets, and that is definitely a cultural thing. You don't want too many people knowing too much about you because this or that, all these XYZ bad things could happen. If you close yourself off to connecting at the very least, then You won't be able to as easily. So you have to at least be open enough to say, I'm in this town. Ain't nobody gonna know your specific address, but I'm in this town and let's meet at this cafe. Especially if you're in some of the groups that are specific to the town where you are. And I think that that's okay. I mean, there's location services on pretty much every platform that we use that Google constantly telling my business, you in XYZ city. Sometimes even on Facebook, when you make a post, it'll say your location. Like you have to disable that feature. When it comes to like online stuff, like really, like we share enough. If you're sharing any type of picture, like people can reverse search that. They can try and find pictures of a similar location. If somebody is really, and that's where you are right now too, if somebody is really motivated, they can kind of pick up your habits and where you go and who you going with and so forth and so on. I just don't know that that is a threat that you need to constantly prepare yourself for and protect yourself from. I think that you should be safe enough to say, I'm in this town at least, and I'd like to meet up. Or, people are going to see you around in the town anyway. They're going to see you at the market. They're going to see you at whatever bar you're going to, whatever restaurant you're going to. So they're going to know that you're there. They may not know how long you're there. They may not know where you live, but somebody could easily like follow you home. I hate to say that, but it's true. So you have to come to this place where you give up this idea that you have anonymity when you really, none of us do, really. Not for real, for real. So, yeah, just soften up a bit and just say, I'm going to make sure I lock the door. I'm going to make sure I do this or that. I got my mace. If it's legal, some countries it's not legal to have mace. Your homemade mace, whatever concoction you can make in a spray bottle. Or like an alert thing, like whatever that looks like to have some type of protection. Or, I usually don't go out after this time alone, or I make sure we walk each other home, or like however that looks type of thing. Also having a local number helps in those kinds of situations so that know the emergency number for that country. I don't know if they speak English, but you can try. But it's just like, you do what you can, but you got to let some stuff go. You got to let someone else go. You're black, I'm black, Come on, Angela. Do you stay in touch with the nomads that you've met and parted with? I have kind of, but not really. I'm a little different. Y'all have to take me with a grain of salt because I'm just a little bit different. The things that I've come to believe about myself based off of peer review, like I'm an acquired taste. I have a very strong personality. I care a whole lot, and everybody don't want to be around something that potent all the time, which is their business. So when it comes to relationships and me, like I don't have many or not any really. I'm not close with my family. I have 9 older brothers and sisters. I'm not normally in touch with them. I have one person back home getting my mail. We're not super close just because like he didn't understand why I wanted to leave. Whatever. He say he understand now. It took him too long. I don't care. I love you, Reese. Thanks for getting my mail, boo. But you know how it is. There are people that you know and love, and love looks different for everyone. So some people understand that and they want to reciprocate, and some people don't. Sometimes you just meet people and y'all are in different places. Maybe you really dig their vibe or whatever, but they're just not open and they don't have space for people. When I was in Malaysia, when I was in Penang, there were a bunch of Black women. Was I close with any of them? No. And it wasn't for lack of trying, but that happens. People just aren't on your same vibe. And it is what it is. But you just make sure you got you. you are full of you, not in an arrogant kind of way, but just you're able to give yourself the things that you need. And sometimes that can come from people if people have that capability. So, no, largely I don't. I'm still connected with them online, but like, I'll just be talking to Black women, and none of these are Black women. so I think that immediately, like, people just kind of glaze over when it comes to my posts, because all my posts is usually about, I'm not posting pictures and stuff like that. I'm not posting what I ate for lunch or videos and stuff like that. I'm posting about y'all and the work that I'm doing with and for y'all. So I think that just kind of, you know. All right, what else? Wash the dishes. Yes, girl. Yeah. Get in the crevices. I love you. You got me choking on coffee. Thank you, Alyssa. All right, so let me get back to my notes. Oh, this next one, child. So, stuff. Humans love stuff. As a nomad, if you do have an intention to check out places and not necessarily settle in one place, then you got stuff. Even if you are moving to a place, I don't know, stuff. If you have too much stuff, it really is like a mental drag. If you're in a place and maybe your visa's coming up or whatever that looks like, and you need to go somewhere else, it's like, but I got all this stuff. How am I going to pack it? And like, what am I going to keep and what am I not going to keep? So it comes a couple different ways. Let me address each individually. If you are a nomad and you're staying places for maybe 3 months, even if I didn't mention before, but there's something that you can do in some countries that are called visa runs. So they are something you legally do where a country just says you need to leave the borders and you come back within X amount of time. Sometimes it's a matter of hours or sometimes it's months. For the Schengen zone, for example, I think most people know about that. The Schengen zone says specifically for Americans, you can be inside in any of these countries. They're all connected for 90 days total. That's the max. So it's not you get 90 days in Italy, 90 days in France. No, you get a total of 90 days to explore France, Italy, Spain, wherever else is inside the Schengen zone. And then they say you have to stay outside of all of those countries, even the ones you didn't visit, the zone period for 180 days. For Thailand, it's a matter of hours. People go into Cambodia and come back out. They go to Laos and come back in. They go out and then come back in. So, and then you get a fresh new stamp and it's completely legal and it's no big deal. So it just depends on the countries that you're going to. But it is possible to do a visa run if you want more time in whatever country you're in. Sometimes people continue to do it. And sometimes people get scared at immigration because they think that something might happen. But I mean, the worst that they could do is just say, like, no. So it depends on how much stuff you have and if you're able to access your stuff in order to get out, so forth and so on. It's always at the discretion of the immigration officer. But usually it's not a big deal. Now, it has happened. Some people have done it for like years, maybe. And so somebody get to flipping through your passport and you standing there sweating bullets. But I think people usually kind of know, like, oh, I've been doing this for 2 years, 3 years, and I need to seek another visa in order to actually stay in this country. Maybe I need to figure out residency or a language visa or school or any other type of visa other than visitor that will allow you to stay in a country longer. So yes, definitely think about that. If it's somewhere you want to stay, figure out, sometimes people open a business. That's a popular way, specifically like Bali. They have businesses that you open a business visa. So you're essentially hiring yourself in the country and, paying the taxes and all the other good stuff. But yeah, definitely think about that. So when it comes to the stuff, like So if you do get locked out of a country, sometimes you know somebody and they're able to get all your stuff and you can get it. Sometimes they'll let you in just to get your stuff so you could go. When I had to leave Malaysia, a lot of the tourists that were there, of course, everybody was taken by surprise, but some people had pets and all kinds of stuff. And it's just, no, you have to think about that type of stuff unless you're traveling with you, like Adelia, Picky Girl Travels. She travels with Mia, her dog, full time. So she knows, or she figures out how to get Mia from country to country. So I don't think that would ever be a thing for her specifically, because like that's her thing. But these are people who move somewhere and then like got some extra stuff, right? So like you don't even know if you can take that animal out. Some countries don't allow that at all. But you think about your stuff and how much you have and managing your stuff so that you're not carrying too much. You heard that Erykah Badu song, Bag Lady. So you got to make sure that you are not going to hurt your back by trying to carry too much stuff. If you are relocating, if you are intending on settling in at a place, I think you can still run into having too much stuff. If it makes you happy, do you, boo? Do you really need it to make you happy? I don't know. I see posts sometimes about people like, I'm in Germany and I'm trying to move to Italy. And is there a relocation company? Maybe it's cheap. I don't know. If you paying for that out of pocket, I would just think it'd be easier long term just to like set up shop wherever you're going versus like trying to relocate a bunch of stuff to your new place. Like, I know you bought that stuff, but I don't know. So just do the math and whatever makes sense in the long term mentally for you about how much stuff you got and yeah, what you gonna do with it and all that. Definitely, if you're leaving, please don't get storage. I made that mistake the first time and I didn't do that again. Make sure that you are freeing yourself up, yourself and your finances, to not have to like pay for somebody to keep stuff. Like at one point, I didn't even know what was in that storage anymore. Like, what was I holding on to? So there are ups and downs with stuff. If it brings you joy, great. But the down part it's like the albatross around your neck. I don't know right now where that really came from, but it's like somebody wants to give you a gift and it ends up being a burden type of thing. So yeah, watch yourself. Watch it. Getting settled. So in my book, that's a down. That's a down, but that's just because of how I've historically treated getting settled. To me, it never feels great. And so I would like to be more intentional about that. What I mean by getting settled is you get to a country and you've probably done your research before you got there in terms of like accommodation. I think mostly is what I'm talking about. And then you have to feet on the ground, looking around, right? Whew. Like that whole process to me. And then the unpacking, like that's not as big of a deal because I try not to travel with a bunch of stuff. But yeah, ugh. Like that whole process is not cute to me because it's just like this, I don't know. It's just the process of finding somewhere and hoping it's nice and hoping they didn't bait and switch you with the pictures and actually being able to reach people and like how motivated are the people in that country to get you settled. Because sometimes people be like, oh, all right, well, let me know when you get here. You're like, I'm here. I'd like to meet at Tuesday at 5 p.m. Are you available? And like, you don't really hear nothing back. And it's just like, that whole process of like reaching out and trying to get people. And then the markets are all so different. In Vietnam, it was a little bit difficult. There's the language thing there, but finding short-term housing. So short-term housing doesn't exist everywhere. It didn't exist in Malaysia. If there is short-term housing, you're paying like maybe 10 times the rate sometimes. Also, depending on the season, sometimes people do seasonal rentals. So it's all types of variables involved. In Thailand, it was not that big of a deal. There were a lot of places that would rent month to month, and you just had to go see if you liked it and if the price was cool. And it was straight like that. Indonesia was pretty much the same, depending on where you were going. Because Indonesia's huge in a lot of different spaces. So, but for the most part, like I never had a problem finding somewhere within my budget. And so in Malaysia, I did end up signing a lease a couple of times. I did find some short-term housing. It wasn't all that great. It wasn't meant for long-term stay. It was like vacation type rentals. So that's never my favorite part. that's a down in my book. But you can have a different mindset. You don't have to be like Wanda. You can be different and just block some time off to give yourself the time to find somewhere. So you're not worried about work. You're not worried about having stuff scheduled. You can just be a tourist for a little bit and enjoy the experience of exploring your new city while you're looking for appropriate accommodation. Airbnb historically has been used by folks. I've used it a little, mostly to negotiate for long-term housing. Sometimes people are amenable, sometimes it's not. It depends on, again, where you at. People trying to get that girl. Airbnb is really meant, it's not reflective of local prices. Almost never. It's not reflective of local prices. It's people who are putting their property on the market at a much higher rate because they're trying to get that guap. So you can't be mad at that, but whatever. I'm over having stuff. I like coming home to my stuff in storage, vehicle and all. Okay. And that's the thing too. That's not me. The first time that I left in 2010, I had storage. Somebody was keeping my car. They wasn't starting it like I asked them to, but it was like 9 months that I was gone. So, but they kept the car. It was a Toyota Camry. Like, I don't know. America has never been a plan B for me. Like, being out here in these streets since 2016, there was no going back. There wasn't anything I wanted to go back to. So having that tab closed in my mental space, not having to worry about storage, not having to worry about anything back home at all, helped to just free my mind up to do what I'm going to do. Some people want to go back, and maybe you have people back home that are able to handle some things, or you have people you want to go back to, and that's dope. So if you want to, everything's not for everybody. So if you do want to go back, girl. Keep your stuff there, girl. Do you, girl? What's considered long-term housing versus short-term is 2 months short or long. 2 months is short. Usually leases are a year long at the minimum, from what I've seen, at least a year long. If it's anything less than a year, sometimes that's going to reflect in the price. They'll charge you more for having a short term. Some places don't even do leases. Like where I'm staying right now, like they didn't do no paperwork. For better or for worse, I'm not sure how that's going to work out because I told you they're doing it different. And if this refrigerator break, apparently I'm supposed to replace it. So you keep it together. So yes, short term, I think, is anything less than a year, really. And doing like month to month or whatever. What else was I going to tell you about that? If you want to get real scrappy with it, like sometimes you can do like volunteer for stay at some places. It depends on where you are in your life and how you trying to make that happen. If you're volunteering, that's going to cut into the time and the mental space that you have to spend on working on things for yourself, which we're going to get to the entrepreneurship ups and downs very soon, I promise. So yes, accommodation, not my favorite part. Maybe I can change that narrative for myself. You said If you have no plans on returning, I wouldn't keep a storage. Yes, girl. Okay, y'all talking nice to each other. I like it when y'all talk nice to each other. Travel culture. So there's a little bit of pressure in these streets to be in a flying dress in Greece, against the blue walls, like whatever it looked like, to be a whole bunch of stuff you might not be, to present travel as a certain way. And it irks me. I guess it's like Instagram culture, really, where you're supposed to be hanging off the edge of a waterfall. You know what it is. You know the stuff that gets attention. You're supposed to be half naked. I think these things are subconscious on us. When you're traveling long term, that's not your reality. If you're vacationing, like you may be in the nest in Bali. If you're traveling long term, you may end up at the nest in Bali or the gates or like any of these tourist places where you're visible and you're having people take the pictures, whatever. I think it should be something that is addressed consciously. Like, am I participating in that? How do I want to show the ways it's possible to travel? Do I feel a certain type of way because I don't present like that? Whatever. I believe that it's a conversation worth having with yourself at the very least. And then I don't know. I think at some point we all became introverts. Maybe it was just in this last year when we figured out we don't actually like or need people. Oh, I'm a mess. So there's also this, I don't care to be seen. I think there's value in being seen. I think there's value in showing up, mostly for yourself first, because that's my focus. Focus on you first. You show yourself what it is to be seen. You show yourself that you deserve to be seen. You're worthy of being seen, that your story has merit, even though it may not look like other people's stories. You just show yourself a bunch by being visible. I think that there's some really dope things to be gained from it personally before it even impacts anybody else out there. So I think it's worth it to be seen. But keeping in mind the travel culture that is largely out there, where it's not much cellulite. so just, keep it in mind. And understanding why you're not showing up. If you're not showing up, how conscious are you about the decision or not? So just embracing your travel. This is your story, how you want to tell it. It's a story worth hearing. Everybody has a story, literally, and it's going to be so different. I'm trying to tell you, I've been around the world and I ain't never met nobody just like you. That's real. So there are things that you have to share, and there are ways that you're going to say it, and there's an energy that you have that fuels it, that is very different from anything and everybody else out there. And there's something really magical and special about you showing up and telling that story in some way, shape, or form. So I promise the entrepreneurship is coming, but that definitely plays into it. So the larger travel culture can be a bit of a downer because you might not see yourself reflected. So I think it's even more important than to show up and say, no, I'm not a 20 something. No, I'm not this. No, I'm not that. But I am this and I am that and I am this and I am that. And that makes a pretty dope human being. So look at me, look at me. Shopping while you are abroad can be a thing. Everything is in another language. Grocery aisles be all organized in a totally different way. Not to mention, I think Americans are used to going to one place to get everything they absolutely could ever need in life, for the most part, and then going about their life. And abroad, you got to go here, you got to go there. Markets are a thing. Sometimes there's not prices on stuff, language barriers. Sometimes like you just really don't have the energy for all of that. In some other places, like delivery is very common. So, and it's like $1. So you might just be shopping online and get your groceries online. I don't know that I always recommend that. Maybe in these COVID times, it's better anyway. But yeah, it can be a drain. If you're into skincare and stuff like that, they might not have some things available. But for the most part, they got olive oil all around the world. They got eyebrow pencils all around the world. They got, some stuff, something to be wary of, maybe like hair care, black hair care. That's its own bullet point. That's most definitely a down in my book, because I've learned. I thought I could do without it. And the way Malaysia ate my hair up and dried me out, child, I've talked about it so many times, but it's something to be wary of. How are you going to get the things that your specific type of hair needs? If there's not a Black population where you're going, it's going to be harder. You might could have some stuff shipped in, but there's sometimes an import tax depending on the amount, like the dollar amount of value of what you're having shipped. And it might just be on GP. Some of these countries just want to charge and make money however they're able to make money. So if you have something shipped to you, you might be paying a lot more for it than you would back home. If you got friends who could bring up stuff, or if you're making trips back home, you want to, just be conscious of that type of stuff. If there's a Black population where you're going, there might be that kind of stuff there, like shea butter, cocoa butter, whatever. Or, Miss Jessie's or whoever, Aunt Jackie, all of them. So that's something to keep in mind. The olive oil may only take you so far. The coconut oil may only take you so far. So yeah, I will say that for specifically hair care. And again, the skincare, if you're into the 7-step routines and stuff like that, some things are not going to be available locally. They'll have other stuff, but they may not have the brands that you're used to and want, with the concentration of whatever ingredients that you want. They may just have, the Neutrogena and they need to sponsor this. I shouldn't have said their name. Okay, that's how you need to be thinking. Entrepreneurship is coming. Also, eating out sometimes is just as affordable as cooking. It depends on what you cook. Are you trying to eat an American diet while you are abroad? That's going to cost more. Maybe. Sometimes in Europe, they have kind of the same whatevers, similar whatevers. Here I'm buying like quinoa. Buying quinoa back over there where I was going to be way too expensive. Here it's like a couple of dollars for a bag. So I'm getting my quinoa on. But yeah, so think about what you're eating and how you're eating. Also, the quality of food. Like, if you are eating out, is it just a bunch of fried stuff, or, whatever. Make good choices. Make good choices for yourself. And also, like some places, stocking out your kitchen can be a thing. For some, cooking is self-care. Like, I love popping on a podcast, usually not my own, which is very sad, but I spend so much time listening to that audio. I have a podcast, in case you don't know, Black Women Travel Podcast, a new episode every single Sunday by 9 a.m. Eastern, where I talk to Black women from all over the world about where they came from, how they're making the decisions to choose themselves and prioritize travel in their lives. So definitely check it out. The link's in the channel description. But anyway, it can be really nice to pop on a podcast and like go fix some food. And because my mind is so busy all the time, every single day. So chopping up some stuff and cooking some quinoa, making a little salad or whatever is a nice break, which is sad because it's also productive, but it's still a nice break from this laptop. But that is just something to think about. This lifestyle is about investing in the things that you care about. It's not about stripping away everything in order to live the cheapest life possible. It is about being intentional. If you are paying for a gym membership and you're not going to the gym, why not use that money for something you would actually do, paying for an online class or whatever it is. So being intentional. If the kitchen is your happy place, spend that money, child. If you prefer to eat out, make good choices and just make sure you're, maybe invest in some vitamins or something. Just make sure you're taking care of your body for real. Also, when you're traveling, I think this is a bit of a down. There's a tourist tax. That's what I call it. And it's basically like, because you're foreign, sometimes you are just paying more for stuff, even where there's a price that is stated. For example, I'm here in Albania. It's cherry season. I went to go get some cherries. And there was a local, I was hanging out with some dudes. And a local dude was like, how much you pay for that? And I was like, I paid this amount. And he was like, oh, they charge you too much. It was the price that was stated on the sign, but there's an unstated like local price that they just like give to each other. I think the same as in Malaysia, even though the prices are stated, like if you Malay, like you paying a little bit less. So, and it happens with rent as well, accommodation. They see you foreign, they want them dollars. Okay. So it's just something to be aware of, but maybe not necessarily angry about. That's up to you. In Vietnam, like it's well known that they will try to get over on you. I don't know that that necessarily happened to me because I didn't have the skin they like, they like there. So yeah. Cash. A lot of people are concerned about cash. For some, it can be a down if you are trying to have a local bank account. I'm not sure what the benefits of that are. I use Schwab, SCHWAB, Charles Schwab. You could take money out of any ATM anywhere around the world, and the exchange rate is excellent, excellent, excellent. And there's no ATM fee that I pay. Schwab refunds every single fee every single time. So if the bank charges, it's not my business. But yeah, some people want a local bank. I guess I don't know why. I can't think of a reason why I would want a local bank. Even if I were making local money, I'm going to be paying my rent in cash. If I'm going to the market, which a lot of these countries have, I'm going to be paying for that in cash. They don't take cards at the market. So, and the bills, your electricity, your water, whatever, you're going to be paying that in cash as well. So I'm not sure of the benefits of having a local bank, except for you're used to having a local bank, so you want a local bank. But I don't think you need a local bank. Not with my buddy Charles Schwab. Healthcare. A lot are concerned with healthcare. In my opinion, that's a huge up, because America tries to charge you out the wahoo every which way, and other countries do not do that. You've heard of medical tourism, you've heard of dental tourism. People will go to other countries. Even with the cost of the flight, it is often much cheaper to have your health taken care of somewhere else, paying out of pocket, than it would be back home, because the systems are just built differently. Some people believe in accessible healthcare. So that's a huge up, in my opinion. When I was in Malaysia, and I'm going to have this done here as well, I have a history of breast cancer in my family. So I went through the whole, annual thing with my boobies and my body, just getting the annual check, make sure everything all right. And I posted it in the Black Women Digital Nomad Entrepreneurs group. And I posted like the menu with the prices on it as well. And it's like extremely, extremely affordable. So I'll have to find that post and re-up it so you guys can get an idea, at least in Malaysia, what that was like. I don't know what it'll be like here, but I'm sure it'll be great. I also got just like, my teeth cleaned and stuff like that. Super cheap. I did that in Vietnam and Malaysia, so like not a big deal. Finding the stuff you think you need. I see in a lot of particularly expat groups. In expat groups, they ask, how can I find this? Where can I find that? Expats or people, foreigners who are either retiring or working in another country, are often consumed with comfort. And not that you shouldn't be comfortable, but it just seems like they're trying to recreate home where they are. Does Amazon deliver here is a very common question. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't think that's sustainable personally. So I've never done that. A lot of times, if you are looking for something, you can find it. There's a local version of whatever website you're looking for. So there's in Asia, there's Lazada, or there was a Shopify or something like, no, not Shopify, Shopee. So those are two alternatives to Amazon. Because a lot of places Amazon doesn't deliver and people don't realize that if you are relying on that. Okay, so now we're to entrepreneurship, the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. It's a lot, child. So a lot of times people are concerned about Wi-Fi. I typically don't travel to places that have a really bad reputation for Wi-Fi. If I were going to Cuba, I would not necessarily be going there to work, because I've heard terrible things about the Wi-Fi there, how unreliable it is, and so forth and so on. Once I get there, it may not actually be that, but I can't go with the expectation of being super productive and like keeping everything on track, because I've heard how horrible it is. But other places usually have like pretty decent Wi-Fi. You just do a little bit of research to understand that. Because if you are working online, that's going to be crucial, and you don't want it to be expensive. And yeah, some people travel with the portable Wi-Fi thing. That's an option. I never have, because everywhere I've traveled, the infrastructure has been there for it to be decent enough for me to get done what I need to get done. Ups and downs. So when you're traveling, again, with the travel culture, sometimes there's this pull to be outside, to like maybe getting content, or maybe just experiencing life outside in the streets and going here and going there. There's also work that you need to do. So there has to be a conscious decision that you're making between off time where you're able to go and explore and time that you're working, and finding something that works for you there. So that could be up and down. Because it's nice to be out in them streets, not a care in the world, girl. I made it out. I'm living my life. I'm doing this. I'm over here this week. I'm over there next week. Like that's cool. But you got work to do too. So just keeping that in mind. Ups and downs of, so your business as an entrepreneur, if you are a digital nomad and you're not working for someone else, you don't have a remote job. So you're not working locally for a company, and you don't have a remote job for a company back home or somewhere else. Any company can offer remote work. Everyone doesn't, but whatever. This may be the first time that you've had complete charge over your time. So time management is a thing. There's also, I talked about being with yourself. Sometimes there's a lot of confusion that can come through. This person is saying that person is saying that. That's why I always drive you back to yourself. What do you want? How do you want this to look? What feels good to you? What's in your spirit to express? So it's really important to create clarity for yourself. It's nice to have people that echo what it is that you're feeling. It's nice to be in conversation like this, because sometimes something comes up and it sticks, and it helps you to see something a different way, puts a different spin on it. But you still have to go back to yourself. This is great. You still have to go back to yourself. You get a coach, you work with a coach. That's great. You still have to do the work yourself. You're with a therapist. That's great. You still have to do the work yourself. So all these things are support systems, and those are important to have in place. I think that you do need that. I think you do need some type of community. I think you do need some type of therapy, some type of coach, somebody who has a voice that has a little bit more clarity than you. I love Dr. Tama, and I listen to her podcast. Sometimes I'll binge, and it's great because some of the episode titles aren't ones that strike me. I'll listen anyway, and I still have some type of revelation, just because to me, her voice is very clear. Her ideas, her thoughts The things she chooses to talk about are very clear. And I love having that type of energy in my life. And I think that helps me to create more clarity for myself. So if this is the first time that you've been out, or if you're in a new phase in your life, which we constantly are, so you have all of this time, the business is 150 million% coming from you and how you think it should flow. So whether you're creating your business from your imagination or you're using someone else's infrastructure, it always still comes back to you. How well are you? How healthy are you? How rounded are you? How open-minded are you? How are you making space for more of you? How are you giving yourself permission to share yourself? That is also a bullet point in this entrepreneurship conversation when it comes to the ups and downs. Is all the Black women that I've talked to specifically for the podcast, there's a nice chunk, there's a nice percentage that hide behind their brands. I don't want people to do business with me because I'm Black. I don't want to be the face because people may not be attracted to the brand because I'm Black. Black women not using their real name online, not showing their pictures online. There's this hiding that happens. And I think because of something that we talked about before, which is like sometimes Black women are attacked online. There's the dog pile. We're not lifted up. Even when one of us is murdered, we're not lifted up as much as a murdered Black man, right? Everybody's tired all of a sudden, right? Because we're holding ourselves up and we're holding others up, and not just Black, right? There's the Asians, there's all this, Indians, So Indians are Asian, sorry. But there's this hiding that happens. There's this place where Black women, and I think this happens in entrepreneurship, period. There's the nuance for Black women, but this place where Black women are not stepping into what they know. They're not stepping into the title of expertise. This is just something I do, or, doesn't everybody know how to do this? Or like, this is nothing special. There's not enough practice of putting value and worth into what it is that you have to offer. And because you don't do that, you're not able to package it, and you're not able to consistently put yourself out there to see what works and what doesn't work. All of that is wrapped into each other. Nuance, right? So the business is 100% coming from yourself. And if there's any cloudiness there, if there's any fear there, if there's any under appreciation of yourself there, then you will not be able to step forward with your entire chest. You will not be able to package it clearly. You will not be able to test and see what resonates with people and what doesn't, because you haven't gotten the number one thing correct. And it is a process. And Black women don't like making mistakes. You don't want to show up sloppy. You don't like that. You want to show up and already have your 6-figure idea completely packaged and branded and the LLC registered. And you want to have everything so Trump tight that you don't give yourself the space to really get there. And so because you're not showing up 3,000%, you're not even letting yourself show up 3%. All of that is wrapped into each other. So that's definitely a down. You have traveled somewhere new. You are maybe in a space where you are more alone than you were before. Maybe you don't have your support network set up yet, or maybe you don't see the value of a support network. So if you're spending so much time inside your head, which that is entrepreneurship, then you are not seeing where you are not pushing yourself. You are not seeing pushing yourself more towards yourself, not pushing yourself like I have to meet this, I have to meet that, not that productivity trash. It is, I'm not being honest with myself. I'm not being real with myself because I'm continuing to believe a story I've told myself about myself that has persisted from the beginning of time, most often. Somebody told you when you were 3 that you were good or bad at something, and so now you believe that you're good or bad at something, and you a whole you a whole adult now. So it's crucial. It is crucial. It is crucial, and I can't say it enough. Everything has an energy signature. You know if somebody's lying. You know if somebody a little bit off, and they may not be off to everybody, but they off to you. And that matters because that means that you're not going to spend time with them. You're not going to spend money with them. And it's the same thing with you. If somebody, and to an extent, you are a commodity, you're a brand, right? To an extent, I don't say that lightly. You show up for you first. You're doing the things that you want to do for you first. People are able to benefit from it as the cherry on the top, or as something, it's a whole different dessert on the other side somewhere else. It don't even got nothing to do with with what you're building right here. So, but still you need customers, you need clients, you need people to pay you for what it is that you're trying to do, whether it's a product or a service. So your energy matters. You being confident matters. You being aware of how people perceive you somewhat matters. If you are showing up as yourself, I believe that that's a win in and of itself. But people who might spend with you might see that you are just aren't there yet. And so that might turn them off from spending with you because you're not showing up like fully, like for real, for real. You're not showing up and saying, I deserve to be here. This is my space. I'm excited to be here. Let me tell you about what I could do for you. Let me tell you about how my product and my service helps you. I believe wholeheartedly that my product and my service helps you. And this is how. You're going to look fly. You're going to feel good. It's usually just selling the feeling of something, right? That's all entrepreneurship is about. You want to feel included. You like this computer because of the way it makes you feel, not because it's actually better. You like this phone because of the way it makes you feel. It's not actually because it's better. So any product or service that you have to offer, like you're selling that feeling. And if you don't have that feeling about yourself, then it's hard. That's why they say move like a confident white man. And, I don't really talk about them, but that has a little bit of merit to it. Don't undervalue what it is that you have to offer. So that's definitely up and down. And that changes from moment to moment, even within a day while you out here in these streets. So you have to be your own cheerleader in a lot of ways. You have to lift yourself and keep yourself lifted and be aware of the things you have around you in order to keep yourself lifted. What are you listening to? Are you listening to high vibe music or are you playing Donny Hathaway all day? you know, and it doesn't mean you have to be dancing out of your seat like manic all the time, but it does mean that you are aware of your influences, you are aware of your thoughts, and not letting yourself downward spiral because, oh man, I messed this up and now they're going to think that about me. And why did I even show up in the first place? And why did I leave in the first place? And who do I think I am? Like it goes like that, right? So you just have to be super careful about not doing that to yourself. And it can be easier to do when you're out here in these streets alone. You also have to be conscious of organizing your thoughts. For a lot of us, entrepreneurship is new. We have had a job our entire lives and we think we could do this on our own when a lot of these jobs had infrastructure, a lot of people doing a lot of parts in order to make the whole work. And now you are doing everything often on your own. So giving yourself a lot of grace. No one is saying you have to build a website, but you probably do need a website. Because what if Facebook decide you don't have an account no more? Somebody had their whole Instagram taken down. How are people going to know how to get in touch with you if you don't have your own digital space that you mostly own? I mean, you got to pay the real estate for it. You got to pay for the domain name. You got to pay for the hosting. But that's your space as long as you pay for it. And I guess if you don't break some rules that the internet gods determine. So you have to organize your thoughts. You have to organize your intentions. You have to have a vision for how you want it to look, what feels good for you, for the work that you want to do. Some of that is going to come from copying, but it always is great if you could say, you know what, I see what that person is doing. I don't like that. I see what they're doing. I don't like that. And sometimes it's that. I don't like that. I don't like that. But you don't really know what it is you want yet. So it's the process of letting yourself get there, continuing to organize your thoughts, continuing to have that type of vision and seeing what it feels like when you get there and living in that a little bit, and then taking the steps that you need to take in order to invite that experience in your life. So when you get there, you know, oh, like I created this. This is what I wanted. This, I know this feeling because I've been living in this feeling for some time. Like this is what I want. I'm here. And then you gonna want something else, but that's another story. Let me check in with y'all. Haircuts are a little bit of a challenge, but not necessarily. I got a bomb cut when I was in Malaysia. I think everywhere fades are, well, I cut my hair short though. I had locks and then I cut them all off and had super short, and now I got her. But I don't know. I don't know. It can be, but I think there's some capability depending on the barber, because some countries are used to an international population that have a different hair texture than the locals. Because even in Malaysia, like white people was talking about finding a hairdresser that could do their hair versus an Asian hair, and like they're both straight, but it's a different straight, I guess. I don't know. I've never been either, white or Asian. Everybody's tired when it's the black woman that is so painfully true. They can be, child. We get tired for ourselves. Brianna Ware. You could be comfortable with you regardless. White men know how America's support system will not work for them. No comparison, but finding your path is essential. It's essential, boo. Well, date every day. We've talked about time management. It's also super important to give yourself downtime. I'm not always great about that. Again, my productivity is like, well, let me go fix myself some food. I recommend it. I don't necessarily know what that looks like in your life, but it's necessary. Being able to turn your brain off to the vision and feeling and planning and what do I need to do next and all that stuff. It's essential. You got to take some time off. You live and breathe it every single day. Even when I'm occasionally like just scrolling, like I'm looking at design, I'm looking at how this person presents what they talk about and what their business model is, what it is they have for sale. A business model is simply how a business makes money. So what is this person promoting? And it seems like everybody's promoting something these days. Nothing is about actual conversation. Everybody's just showing you that they're funny, or showing you that they have a new seasoning for sale, or that a client was really happy with their work. It seems like everybody is selling something these days. So that's something. But downtime, got to give yourself some downtime. There's and there's never ending work. Again, you are a one woman, one person show, one femme show. So if you, and I'll talk about this more, but if you are doing everything yourself, which in the beginning, more than likely you are, because even if you hire someone, you may not know how to manage that person because you haven't done it yourself yet. So you could give them a job and not even know if they're doing a good job because you don't know how to do that. So that is a thing as well. So it's a lot. If you create your logo, if you create your branding, you know, all your colors for your brand, if you create your website, if you are managing your own social media and creating social media assets, if you are recording your own videos, if you are doing lives, if you have a product launch, whether that's a physical product or a service, the funnels, the email lists, it goes on and on and on. And all of that takes time. And if you are learning it for the first time, if you are designing for the first time, Canva is cute, but there's some ugly stuff that can come out of there. Honestly, I'm so sorry. And I make it sometimes myself, but there's some ugly stuff that could come out of there. And then you're concerned, oh, like I can't show up because it's not super polished. So, and not to mention the copywriting, like just writing to express and to grab people's attention, and being comfortable with telling your own story enough to grab people's attention, because people are wired for storytelling. Like, and then you want to take the classes and then you get caught up in the classes. Like, talk about spiral. Like that's the entrepreneurship spiral you can be caught in. But there's the vision, but there's the actual work, and it does take a lot of that, and consistent at that. So that's definitely, it's an up and a down. It is wonderful to be inside it. Even the parts you may not like so much, it is wonderful to be inside it, to be like, what am I really saying? What am I really thinking? How do I want to present this? Nobody else is talking about it like this. And I see that, and I want to talk about it like this. And doing that, like that could be wonderful. But then again, it is never ending. And if you stop, it all stops. If you get off track, if you don't feel good, if you stayed up too late, if you're hungover, if you in heated fellowship and crying about somebody, up and down, boo. There might be the temptation to get a job again if you are alone, if you haven't been conscious of what you have around you, if you don't have a support system, if you have not built yourself up and you're continually building yourself up, you might be like, girl, let me just get a job. The money I got is going to carry me this far. Maybe I should just get a little gig. Everything that you do that is not building your business is going to take a bit of energy from your business. It's going to be a little bit harder to get to that point where you are able to support yourself to the point where you want to support yourself financially if you take your energy away to get your resume together, to put yourself out there for some jobs, search for the jobs to apply for, so forth and so on, write the cover letters and all that stuff, because that takes time and energy too. So, and then let alone just working a job in and of itself. Girl, I'm tired. Let me go for some drinks and appetizers, right? So or even working locally. And I speak from experience. So I've taught voice, like singing. I have done some tutoring. What else did I used to do? Definitely those two. But I wasn't going to make the money I needed to make doing those things. I got some satisfaction because I show up for the things that I do, but they were not going to be the things that ultimately built my brand. I had to do that. I had to pull myself away from those things and really focus and burrow down. And it's a constant process. I'm getting there. And it's dope to be at this point in that process. It's the ups and downs, right? It's building faith in yourself. It is trusting yourself. And even if it doesn't go as you want it to go, still trusting yourself to get through it. Learning curve. That was another part of it, is the ups and downs are time, giving yourself enough time. I think people underestimate. People think you can have a business in 6 months. If you focus really hard for 6 months, you can have a sustainable business. Maybe not. It depends on how much of that inner work you're doing, how rooted in yourself, how grounded in yourself you are. Also, it depends on the market and where people are. Would people be talking about travel this heavy and Blaxit had 2020 not happened the way it happened? Had everything but racism got quiet. So things are sometimes just out of your control in terms of timing and stuff. You can show up, but people not be in a place to hear you until they are. And sometimes that takes time. And it may not be 6 months. It may not be a year. It may not be 2 years. You may have to be at this for years. You may have to be in people's consciousness for years and evolving your message for years, evolving yourself for years before it gets to that sweet spot where people want to buy from you, where they want to support you, where they hear what you're saying clearly, where it's driving them to engage with you in that kind of way. If you don't have an income stream, I think this is an up and a down. It can be a motivation for you to get it together. But again, there are some things that are outside of your control. The down can be the pressure. Sometimes you buckle under pressure. There's a lot of pressure to show up, to come correct, right? To show up right. And if you are not getting the results from your effort, that can be very discouraging. Imagine being on a diet and not that I encourage this. I want to use a different immediately. I want to use a different analogy. Imagine painting a room. So that's a lot involved, right? You got to tape off the corners and like the baseboards and like all this stuff. You got to find the paint that you want, get the tools that you need, and you start to paint. And it's just like you are not seeing it. You're not seeing the color show up the way you want it to show up. You're not seeing progress, right? You're trying to get a wall done and get to the next wall. And the wall that you did don't look like you even did nothing. That doesn't mean you didn't do anything. It just may not look like you did nothing to you. So it's like pressure to feed yourself, to take care of yourself. I think there's a huge fear of being homeless abroad. And how am I going to do this if I'm not able to make money from this? So trying to levy your expectation. It is good to show up. It is good to have some pressure, but do not succumb to that to the point where it can tear you down. You know, it can be debilitating. You curled up in the bed, wrapped up in self-doubt, instead of empowering yourself to continue to try another day, to say it another way, to see what you haven't been seeing. And that's where that support network comes from. If you do have a coach, if you do have a therapist, if you do have this or that, that's going to help move out the way. If you are having honest conversations with yourself, that's going to help you move whatever it is out the way so that you can continue to show up and not say, I've tried it. It's not working. It's not working. Have you tried it long enough? Da, 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 da. What are the factors? And how are you being honest with yourself so that you can keep trying? It takes time. Okay. Ups and downs. You got to invest. So you got to invest somewhere along the way. You don't have to do everything by yourself. From the beginning, you don't have to do everything by yourself. Somebody else does logos. Somebody else does website design. Whether or not you pay them actual dollars is another matter. What kind of way? Is there a barter something you could work out? There's always a way to get what it is that you want within the means that you're able to get it. It just depends on if you're comfortable for asking for help. I know. What? Black women ask for help? But you can't do it all. I encourage wholeness. So I want you to get to this place that you say you want to be and arrive there as a whole human being, not fragmented. And you had to cut this off and cut that off in order to squeeze into this idea to reach a finish line. I want you to arrive whole. And that means asking for help. And that can mean hiring. If you get to a place where you have a little bit of income or a lot of bit of income, you're going to have to hire somebody. You're going to have to trust somebody. You're going to have to explain to somebody, train somebody so that they can assist you as you free yourself up to do the other stuff, the big brain stuff, the vision stuff that needs to be done in order to get your business to the place that you're trying to get it. And it doesn't have to be 6 figures, but you also don't have to limit yourself. It just depends on how much effort and what you want your life to look like. So that's something to think about. How much help are you asking for? Where are you asking for this help? How are you creating the resources to be able to access the help that you need? So think about it a lot. Think about that a lot. It is not possible to get to where you're trying to go completely alone. Somebody else has to be involved in some way, shape, or form along the way. Otherwise, it's going to cost a lot. And I don't know that that price is worth it to you. That also has to deal with scaling so the ups and downs of scaling, right? And this is something I think every entrepreneurship deals with at some point. You get to this point where it's like, wow, this is a lot of work. Can I afford to bring more people on? And then the question becomes, can I afford to not bring more people on? Because I'm not saying you have to have 10 employees, but probably a good one or two freelancers or full-time employees are going to help you to have the life that you want, and automate and automate and automate so that you are less in the day-to-day doings of things and more, again, in the vision and helping the execution of the vision. Also, calling yourself out, the ups and downs, calling yourself out when you are not taking yourself to the next level. You have to super be cognizant of that. You have to be aware of when you are holding yourself back because you're refusing to have those honest conversations. You're not sitting with yourself in the possibilities of yourself. So I think that's most everything that I wanted to talk to y'all about, when it comes to the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and travel. So being a digital nomad entrepreneur. I hope this was helpful. If you would please, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and give this a thumbs up. You can also turn the notifications on for the channel. I'd love and appreciate that. And if this video, any part of it, did something for you, if this live did anything for you, or if you're watching it after it's not live no more, the video, share it, please. Just be like, hey, I watched this. It was interesting. I didn't throw up, so I want to share it with the people in my community. I would love you forever for that. And also, I have a community. So Black Women Digital Nomad Entrepreneurs is a Facebook group. Come find us, join us. Just like in this live here, we talk nice to each other up in the room, try to be a resource to each other. And I also have a weekly podcast that I mentioned before, Black Women Travel Podcast, where I share intimate stories of Black women travelers from all over. And representation is really important to me on the podcast. So you'll see different body types and skin tones and hair textures and different countries of origin and LGBTQ and trans, which is included in the LGBTQ. And, of course, different, I said countries of origin. So yes, I would love for you to check that out. You can check the description of this video. You can also check the channel description as well and connect with me however you like to. I have a lot of ways for you to do that. So thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you out there in the internet streets. Bye, girl.